impact that outlasts us, we don't have to operate on empty. Instead of chasing success, maybe what's really required is sacrifice. Our next speaker has worked with leaders across 18 countries and 4 continents, helping people around the world effectively use their influence to serve others. He is the CEO of Branches Worldwide and author of the Amazon #1 new release, Authentic Leadership, here to help us develop genuine and effective influence that achieves a lasting significance. Please welcome Dan Owolabi.
Hey, Global Leadership Summit! How's it going? Oh, it's good to be here. My name is Dan Owolabi, and I am thrilled to be here with you. Now, we're going to get things kicked off real quickly with a series of questions. Now, what I really want from you is active participation. I want everybody to be in on this. So if you are sitting somewhere and you're participating and somebody next to you is not participating, you have my permission to give them a hard kick in the gut, all right? I want everybody in on this, right? So what I want to do is just on the count of 3, I want you to raise your hands and answer to this question. Raise your hand if you work. If you work. If you work at something, if you have some sort of occupation, if you work hard, good, keep your hands up. Raise your hand if you keep your hands up if you work hard sometimes, like you really do. Put some, okay, good, that's almost everybody. Now, keep your hands up, raise your hand if you want your work to matter. If you want your work to actually count. When you wake up in the morning, you actually want to do something meaningful, good. Now, I want you to raise your hand, keep your hands up, raise your hand if you ever have moments where you wonder if your work actually matters. If your boss is here, I just want you to raise your hand real low here. Don't let him see. You know what's funny about this? You saw it, I saw it. There are 7,000 people here in this room. There are tens of thousands of people who are watching online right now. We have people from different generations, different genders, different geographies, right here in this moment. But we all have one thing in common. We all want our work to matter. We all want to make an impact. We want to wake up every morning and we want to do something that makes a difference. We all want to leave a legacy. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about how to leave a leadership legacy. Because the truth is, you might work really hard, but you might not leave a legacy. Let me tell you about one of the first times that I realized how badly I wanted to leave a legacy. I was 13 years old, and I don't know about you if you remember back when you were 13, but when I was 13 years old, I had this hankering, this feeling in me that I was wasting my life. I lived 13 years and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And so I was in 8th grade and I started looking around and saying, I really need to leave my mark. I need to do something significant. And so I remember thinking to myself, what am I going to do? And I was going around my middle school trying to find something that I was going to leave my mark on. And I remember seeing it. It was on this wall in the hallway. It was a list of numbers. It was the track records for our 8th grade, for our middle school. And I remember thinking to myself, you know what? People who are great, people who make a difference, they break records. They do something significant. I'm going to break a record. That's what I said. And so I worked hard. I went out for the track team. I worked really hard. I came in before practice. I worked hard. I came in after practice. I worked really hard. And as the season went on, I wasn't winning any races. It was the 200-meter dash that I wanted to break the record for, and I wasn't winning any races at all. And it got closer and closer to the end of the season. And then finally, the very last meet, the very last race of my 8th grade career, you're not going to believe it, I broke the record. I know. I was so excited. I mean, imagine what it feels like. You know what it feels like when you work really hard for something and then you actually get it. The feeling that your hard work was worth it. Not only that, but I knew that the record up there, I believed it was going to stand for a long time. I mean, I really broke that record. And I remember them taking the name of the other guy off. I don't know what his name was a long time ago. It might have been Tim Spires. I don't know. But they took his name off. Tim, if you're watching, I'm really sorry. And they put my name on. And I felt so good. I knew that it was going to last. I knew it was going to be a legacy. Shoot, I knew I was a legend in 8th grade. Years later, I was in college and I was going through just a really difficult time. You know, sometimes you go through seasons and you want to look back on your successes. And so I was going through a difficult season and I remember thinking, you know what, I just want to go back to my 8th grade and I want to see that record. And so I got in my car and I drove to the middle school. I went down a small town, went down to the town and I drove and I took a left right into the driveway where the middle school was, and I turned the corner and I stopped and I got out and I started looking. And I couldn't find it. Not the record. I couldn't find the whole school. They literally tore the whole school down and built it on the other side of town. My record wasn't up. No one remembered that I'd even run. And I'm telling you, it's funny now, but I wasn't laughing then. I felt sad about it. In fact, I felt like no one remembered all the work that I put in. You know, sometimes you think you work at something and you want it to last. You want people to at least remember that you put that hard work in. And I remember thinking to myself, does anything last? Does anybody care? I mean, you've been there before, you know this. In our generation and the way that we live, things move so quickly. One generation is forgotten so fast. And truth be told, you've had moments like that too in your life, where you worked really hard for something. You've led your family, you've led your church, you've led your business. You've woke up late, you've woke up early, you stayed up late, and you've had moments when you put your head on the pillow at night where you wonder, is what I'm doing actually making a difference? Does anybody actually care? Does this actually matter? Worse yet, sometimes you have moments when you think back to yourself and you say, why did I do all that work? Nobody cares. Why did I put that effort in? Why am I doing this work today? Does it even matter? You know, the truth is, we all want to leave a legacy. We all want to do hard work, and we want our hard work to matter to someone. We want to be remembered for the good work that we do. That's just a human emotion. But the fact is, we know the truth. We know that our work is finite. We can only do so much. In fact, Ernest Hemingway said this well, and you all know this, I know this. Ernest Hemingway said, there are two kinds of death that a man and a woman will experience. The first kind of death is when they're buried. The second kind of death is when the last person, whoever knew their name, says their name for the last time. And you're forgotten forever. We all want to leave a legacy. But the truth is, we also know that at some point, people will forget. So what do you do? If you've ever wondered if your work matters, if you've ever wondered if God has a purpose for your life, if your work will actually make a difference and how it can make a difference, I'm glad that you're here. Because for the rest of the time today, what I want to talk to you about is how to leave a leadership legacy. You know, it really starts by understanding the questions that you ask. Oftentimes when people are talking about leaving a legacy, they're solving for the wrong problem. You have to ask yourself the right question, and the right question is one that most people don't ask. Subconsciously, oftentimes when we're thinking about leaving a legacy, we ask this question. We ask ourselves, what is my legacy? What will be my legacy? That's the wrong question to ask. The question you shouldn't ask is, what's my legacy? You should stop asking that question. The question you should start asking is, who is my legacy? Who is my legacy? Let me tell you what I mean by that. I do a lot of work around the world, and I meet all kinds of different people. And a couple of years back, I was in a conversation with a woman who was absolutely remarkable. She was a professor at the University of Louisville, and she was remarkable for a bunch of reasons. Number one, she was an excellent teacher. Number two, she was an African immigrant. She was from Nigeria. Any Nigerians in the house? Hey, here we go. Number three, she was deaf. She couldn't hear. So it was a remarkable story. And I remember asking her, well, tell me how you got to the place that you're at. And so she told me. She said she was born in Nigeria. She was born hearing. She became deaf when she was little. And immediately she was up against it. Her mom and dad, her family, wrote her off right away. Nobody learned sign language. So she couldn't communicate well with her family. She went to school, she was bullied every single day. Then she got to high school, and there was no interpreter, so she couldn't understand what the teachers were saying. She tried to read lips, but she really couldn't do it well. And so she took her freshman year and she failed it. Then her sophomore year had to fail it, take that again. Junior year failed it, took that one again. By the time she actually finished high school, her siblings had wrote her off. They quit on her. Her mom and dad had quit on her. Her teachers had quit on her. Principals. Because she was 20 years old when she graduated from high school. She pretty much started to quit on herself. And then she went to a church. It was a church full of deaf people. And she met a man named Dr. Foster. She got into a conversation with him, and for the first time in her whole life, he looked her directly in the eye, and he said, hold on. You look like you're about to quit on yourself. Don't do that. Don't quit. You have more potential than you know. You can't quit because God's not done with you yet. And he started to draw out her potential. And she started to stand a little bit taller. She squared her shoulders up a little bit. She looked people in the eye. And she felt something inside her, even if other people couldn't see it. Dr. Foster told her about an opportunity. He said there was a scholarship that was being offered by the Nigerian government for people who with handicaps. They could go to the United States, or could go abroad, and they could get a free education. And she started to feel confident. She said, I'm going to get that scholarship. So she marched down to the education office. She grabbed a number. She sat in the lobby. She waited. There's a bunch of people there. She waited her turn. They called her number. She walked in. She sat down in the office. And the administrator across from her said, how can I help you? Are you here for the scholarship? She looked at him and she put her fingers in her ears and she said, I can't hear. She started writing. And she could see his face change. Immediately, she knew something was wrong. He got up from his chair and he said, okay. And he wrote on a piece of paper, he said, why don't you go wait in the lobby? She said, okay. She got up, waited in the lobby. Everybody started leaving. The day got late. Suddenly, the administrator comes out of his office. He shuts the door. He goes over, and he looks up, and he's surprised to see her. And then he gets a sheet of paper, and he's like, hey, why don't you come back again next week? She's like, oh, okay. So she comes back again the next week, grabs the number, sits down on the chair. The room is crowded. She gets her number. She goes in. When her number's called, she sits down in front of the administrator's desk, and he writes down again. He says, hey, why don't you just go wait in the lobby for a little bit? So she goes to wait in the lobby. Everybody leaves. She's the only one there. He comes out of his office. He turns. He's surprised to see her again. He gets a sheet of paper and he says, why don't you just come back sometime next week? And that's when she realizes she could come back every week, but he doesn't want to help her. She realized it is far easier to communicate with somebody who's in a wheelchair than it is to communicate with someone who's deaf, and he doesn't want to help her. And in that moment, she had a choice. Was she going to believe her mom and her dad, her brothers and her sisters, her principals, her peers, that she doesn't have potential? That this is pretty much what life is going to be like for her? Or was she going to believe Dr. Foster? That this isn't the end? That God isn't done with her yet? So she decided to believe Dr. Foster. You know what? Fine. If he told me I can come back again next week, I'm going to come back again next week. She came back the next week. And the next week. And the next week. She came back every single week for 2 straight years. Sitting in the same spot. Rejected over and over and over again. Finally, after 2 years, one day she shows up. She walks up, gets her number, sits down, and somebody opens the door, and it's a different person. It's not the administrator. She gets ushered in, and the woman says, are you the woman who's been here for 2 years? It was a different lady. And she said, yeah, that's me. I've been here for 2 years, and I just can't get an appointment. And then the woman across from her says, the administrator, he just retired last week. This is my first week on the job. I heard about you. I am glad you're here. I'm going to give you that scholarship right now. And in less than a week, after 2 years of work, in less than a week, she was on the plane to the United States. How about that? She got a graduate degree, she got her bachelor's degree, and then she ended up teaching at the University of Louisville. And when I asked her about how she did it, why did you keep going back after you were quit on so many times? She said, it was because of Dr. Foster. Everybody in that church, our lives were his legacy. He believed in us, and we didn't want to let him down. And so if he believed in me, I was going to keep showing up again and again and again. His legacy was my life. And I wanted to lead it well. You know, the reality is Dr. Foster, he didn't walk around saying, I wonder what my legacy is going to be. I wonder what impact I'm going to make. I wonder what I'm going to build. I wonder what I'm going to accomplish. He asked himself, who is my legacy? And that led him to start seeing the potential in other people. When you ask yourself, who is your legacy? You start to see things and draw things out of people that other people might miss. Oftentimes, when you see potential in people, you see it where they don't see it in themselves. How does this work? It's a lot like this. I'm going to do a quick test for you. I've got an acorn right here. Now, I'm going to hold this acorn up, and I'm going to ask you a quick question. If I planted this acorn, how many oak trees would come out of this acorn? Some of you might say, 1. Some of you might be like, duh, 1. Some of you might say 2. 3? The answer is hundreds. Thousands. Because when an acorn falls, it's like this. When an acorn falls, it hits the ground. And then out of the acorn comes an oak tree. But then the oak tree itself produces more acorns. And those acorns produce more oak trees. And those oak trees produce more acorns. And before you know it, you have an oak grove. The reality is, when you see an acorn, you don't just see an oak tree. You see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of oak trees. Come on. When you see who your potential is, you take a step forward. And where other people see acorns, you see oak trees. When you look at the people on your team, when you look at the people in your church, when you look at your family, when you look at your friends, where other people might see acorns, you see oak trees. You see ridiculous potential in people. That's the difference maker. When you ask yourself, who is my legacy? You see potential where other people don't see it. Let me finish by telling you a story of when somebody saw an oak tree in me. I love education. And a couple years ago, I was pursuing a graduate degree. And I was excited by it. But in fact, it took much, much, much longer than I expected. I thought it was going to take 2 years. But then I got married, had some kids, 2 girls. And then I moved 3 times. I got 4 different jobs along the way. And life just kept getting harder and harder. In fact, the degree that was supposed to take 2 years took 7 years. And so by the time I got to the very end, I was ready to be done. And so I got my final exam that came in, and it was one that you had to write a whole essay for. And so I finished it, and I worked really hard on it. And shoot, I've been at this for 7 years, so I better be really good at it. And I finished the essay, and I sent it off, and I remember looking at my wife saying, my wife Erica, I said, baby, I just killed this. I mean, I crushed it. I'm a legend. She's like, well, if you would have finished it in 2 years, you'd be a legend. But now, let's just settle with graduate, okay? Let's just move on from there. And so we waited, and all of a sudden a letter came in the mail that said that they had my results. So I got really excited. I got my daughter on my lap, put her on my lap. And then I brought my wife around, and I said, hey, read it. I can't read it. Read it. I can't read it. So she opens it up. We're all just really excited, and she reads it. And she says, Dear Mr. Owolabi, we regret to inform you that you did not pass the exam. I couldn't believe it. I'd never failed anything in my whole life. At first, I was shocked. And then I was angry. I was like, you know what? I don't need it. There's plenty of people who change the world. They don't have graduate degrees. I don't need one. If I can't get it in 7 years, maybe I don't want one at all. And I was ready to quit. I don't need this. My wife came up to me and she said, before you walk away, why don't you go talk to your mom? So I got in the car, I drove to my house where I grew up, opened the door, walked in, sat at the kitchen table, and my mom came over, we all sat down together, and I just spilled my guts. I just said, hey, Mom, I'm tired. I've been at this for 7 years. Clearly, I'm not fit for this. And I'm sad that I wasn't smart enough to get this done. That's what I told myself. She said, hey, why don't you hang on 1 second? She goes upstairs, goes to the closet, opens up, grabs this big old dusty box, comes back down. She sets it on the table. She starts leafing through these photos, and she pulls out this photo, and she holds it up. She gives it to me, and she says, Dan, you can't quit because of this. Here's the photo. This is my mom. She's the Nigerian lady I told you about earlier. And my mom said, she said, you can't quit because I took this picture for you. Because of what I went through, I knew that there would be a day when you would want to quit too. And let me tell you about a man who told me something. Dan, you can't quit because you have too much potential. God's not done with you yet. You're better than you know. Don't quit on yourself, even if you feel like other people are quitting on you. I tell you what, I didn't quit. I went back, I finished it, and when I graduated, it was an easy test, took the test again. Now I'm a legend. Took the test again, and then I took this picture. This is my daughter and my mom, and I took this picture because I know there will be a day when she is going to want to quit. And she needs to know that she is part of a legacy of people who do not quit. Her mom and I have a story. Her grandma has a story. She might never know Dr. Foster, but his legacy lives on in her. Let me tell you something. There might be generations that never know your name. They might never know how hard you work. But by God's grace, they will feel your impact. They will know that you did good work in the world because they will feel it in their bones. They will know they have worth because you've worked hard for something that matters. And you left a world that is better and different and something they can live in and thrive in. And so may you run when you feel like walking. May you push when you feel like pausing. May you run forward into God's grace, doing good work, even if no one ever knows your name. And may you find acorns in other people and tell them that they're oak trees. And may you leave a leadership legacy for the next generation. Thanks for your time.